To the edge of it all. I'm your host, Trey, and I look forward to going on this journey with you. Each episode, I'll talk to guests of all walks of life, and I'll ask them the behind-the-scenes truths we all want to know. I'll reach out to newsmakers, celebrities, athletes, and ordinary individuals who were there during some of the biggest events of our time. Together, we will hear the story behind the story. So let's get started. This is The Edge of It All.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Edge of It All. I'm Trey Edge. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. Got a big guest, big-time guest. I'll focus on the big. He is from the world of NBA basketball, and we'll get to him in just a second. Want to thank both of our sponsors for making this podcast possible. First of all, want to thank the good people down in North Georgia. That's NorthGA_top 10. If you're looking for a great place to visit, Blue Ridge Mountains are there, wineries you can visit, go hiking. There's lakes, mountains, whatever you want to do in a very scenic part of this country. Go visit North Georgia. It's the place to go for a romantic getaway or just a family vacation. That is NorthGeorgia_top 10 on Instagram. That's NorthGA_top 10. Also want to thank the Line Movers Network. They're there for all your sports, media, wagering, and daily fantasy sports needs. Be sure to follow them. They've got up-to-date information every day on all the sports you care to know anything about. You can follow them on Twitter at @the_LM Network. That's @the_LM Network. Or go to their website at thelinemovers.net. Focusing on our guest today, and when I say he looks at the world from a totally different vantage point, we are not exaggerating, because he is 7 feet tall and comes at it from a whole different point of view. He is the player development coach for the LA Clippers from Inglewood, California. Please welcome Chad Bell.
Thank you.
Chad, thanks for joining us. Was that close enough? That's about as close as I could get to a basketball introduction from Inglewood, California. That worked for you?
Perfect.
I mean, it wasn't Chicago Bulls 1990s, but it's the best I could do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I should have been running out, shaking my teammates' hand, getting ready for the jump ball. So that was good enough.
Well, that was the motive. Appreciate you joining us, especially given you guys are right in the heart of this NBA season. And I know you've got a game tomorrow, I think you had a game yesterday, so I appreciate you taking the time to join us here today. I mentioned you're 7 feet tall, and trust me, that's not the focus of this interview. But I do have to ask you, because there's things like short guys like me never got to experience. Dunking, for one. But I'm going to take you back to when you were a kid, okay? First of all, when did you start playing basketball? What age?
I started playing basketball when I was about 5 years old.
So it was early.
I didn't play, organized basketball. So I came up playing basketball in my neighborhood with the kids that I grew up in my neighborhood. So playing, basically street ball, at different parks, different rec centers, different elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, just going around the city playing pickup. And then I didn't start playing organized basketball until I was about 12 years old.
Okay. And who knew that street ball would turn into things like and one and things like that? It's become its own phenomenon, right?
Right. Nah, that's real because, way back in the day, a lot of stuff it was documented, but it wasn't out to the public. So when they got N1, it just took up to a whole nother level when they put that. I'm showing, my age here.
Me
they
too.
put it on VHS and then they put it on DVD and then it was all over the world. So to see that's incredible. So, because usually back in the day, most people knew the college players or the NBA players who made it big. They really didn't know about the street legends unless they, got deep into it with the Slam magazine and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
But you couldn't really just access it and watch videos until the N1 thing came out, because this was pre-YouTube. So
sure.
It's pretty cool to see that.
Going back to that time when you were growing up and playing, and you get into organized ball at age 12, were you one of the taller kids then? Or was that a growth spurt that happened later? And I have a reason for asking that, but I'll get that answer first.
No, I was the tallest from day one.
From the jump.
I always was one of the tallest kids in my class, the tallest kid my age in my neighborhood. So I always was the tallest guy around. So when I started playing basketball, I was the tallest on the team. And, more than likely, I was always taller than, my opponents.
There is a challenge in that, is there not? I mean, it's advantage for sure. But you also have to grow with your body, and your game has to grow with your height in a way that not everyone has to do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, especially when you're that young.
Yeah.
Like when I was 12, I was still growing.
Sure.
So you asking somebody that is still growing, 12 years old, super young, and you're playing a sport which requires a whole lot of skill with the footwork, hand and eye coordination. So yes, it was a challenge because you got a whole lot of things coming at you at that age. And I think it would be easier if somebody, and it sounds crazy to say, somebody started after their growth spurt because they're not dealing with the growing pain and stuff like that. But you usually don't do it like that.
No.
So it's more of a challenge. And, for people who don't understand that, they might look at a player a little different. You might wonder, like, why does that player do things a certain way? Well, they're still growing from a physical standpoint and then also from a mental standpoint.
Well, it's interesting because what you do, and we'll get to your job with the Clippers a little bit later in the interview, but you're the developmental coach for the LA Clippers. And you look back at that part in your life, and what was crucial to what would become your success had to be development. You just talked about it. Having to develop those skills at that age is not an easy thing to do. Was there a coach along the way, a mentor, could have been another player, who you think back and think, yeah, that guy or that person was really fundamental in shaping who Chad Bell became as a basketball player?
Well, one guy that was instrumental for me was a guy named Thaddeus McGrew, who started a program called the K-Swiss Pacers, and which turned on and became the top prospects out of Los Angeles, California.
Oh, wow.
He was very monumental in my life because he's a guy that saw me at a very young age and took a chance on me and brought me into his program and, brought me along. At that particular time, I couldn't walk and chew gum very well at the same time. I was, 12 years old, 13 years old, somewhere around there, 6'4" at the time, growing super fast.
Sure.
He's a guy that he had a lot of players, that he was a part of their lives much in the same way, from Paul Pierce to Baron Davis to Amir Johnson to Trevor
NBA stars.
Yeah, so he was I always tell people he was one of the staples of Los Angeles basketball in terms of the AAU scene. So for him to grab me and be a part of my life,
it was a big deal.
With the players that he had worked with, Kevin Garnett, another one he worked with. So he's somebody that understood where I was and where I could go.
Where you could go. And it's interesting you say that because he takes you and your basketball career becomes very successful. We talked about you being a local guy. Make sure I get the facts here right, but you're standing on the Westchester team, I believe. You guys won 2 LA City championships, which, I mean, LA City ball, and you can tell us about this, has always been strong. But what was it like in that day? I mean, winning a city championship, people don't think that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was so big when I was a kid prior to me getting to high school. That was my dream. To win an LA City championship. Because during that time, the city was way more competitive, especially from a public school standpoint. So back in that time, public schools ruled high school sports, whereas the private schools, they were good, but there weren't as many that dominated like the public school did. So it's been a shift now.
Yep.
Obviously, public schools are the ones that kind of dominate.
Yep.
But back in those days, it was the public schools that dominated high school sports. So in turn, the city basketball in itself was very, very strong. So
Legendary.
you had a lot of players I can just name off the list that went on to be major college, players, and some going on to the NBA.
You move on from that and you go to college and play at New Mexico. You would transfer to Nevada. You go on, you play in the NBA G League, you play EuroLeague basketball. I want to take you to college first, though.
Okay.
You go to New Mexico and you wind up transferring to Nevada. Tell me, first of all, why you made that move. And then I've got a question for you regarding where we are today in terms of this transfer portal.
Well, during that time, I was a young man. I came in and I was recruited by a guy named Fran Fraschilla,
Yep.
who works for ESPN. He does
Absolutely.
college basketball. Great guy. I was one of his star recruits for that 2001 class. And, I was very highly recruited, and I decided to go play at New Mexico because I wanted to go to a mid-major and I wanted to go play for a coach, that was recruiting me hard from day one. And I knew that I was going to be an instrumental part of his plans. And in sports, coaches get fired. It's an ugly mark in the business, but it's something that happens. It has to happen. So after my freshman year, he was fired, and we got a new coach. And when you get a new coach, he's going to come in, with his own assistants,
Absolutely.
with his own plans and stuff like that. And I just felt like at the time I didn't fit into the plans and how I envisioned. So I thought it was time for me to move on and get a fresh start somewhere and get with a program that was more to where I felt that I fit at. So I went through the process of opening up my recruiting again, and then I ended up going to Nevada because I thought that program was going in a place where I wanted to be a part of it.
And I want to get to some other things in sports, but I want you to comment real quick, if you wouldn't mind, your opinion of where we are today. It's a very controversial subject, this whole transfer portal issue, where kids can jump from one college to another, not sit out a year. And we're all for player freedom. We're all for NIL, and we're all for players getting what they, quite frankly, deserve. I think we're all on the same side in that. But when you watch college basketball, you're essentially learning a new roster now every year, if you're a college basketball fan. So have we let the horse out of the barn in a sense that we can't bring it back? You know what I mean? Because it's great for the individual player. It's not necessarily great for what? The fan who gets used to cheering for a certain school? Yeah, and you may not be able to answer that. That's true. But just thoughts on the transfer portal as a whole.
Well, I think it's such a layered and loaded question.
Yeah,
but
true.
I'll keep it simple as I can.
There you go.
I just think, times has changed, and people got to realize everything is not going to stay the same. So things evolve. The game evolves itself. So, of course, recruiting is going to evolve. Of course, the dynamics of college athletics is going to evolve. They got the name, images, and likeness deals now, and I think, excuse me, sorry.
Had a light go out.
And I believe that, I'm a big fan of the NIL deals. And I'm also a fan of the transfer portal system because I feel that a player should have the right to, if he decides at a very young age, he's 17, 18 years old, that he wants to go to a place and he or she goes to a place and it's just not working for them.
Not a good fit.
I don't think they should be penalized for a whole season. I think they should have that opportunity to go to another place and play. I was a transfer and I had to sit out. And I'm not saying it just because I had to sit out, but I understand that, that window is short. So also coaches they have the ability, and this is me being a coach. I'm not only a former college player, but I'm a former college coach.
Yep.
So I also understand that coaches have the opportunity to elevate, and they also unfortunately they get exterminated sometimes due to, wins and losses and things of that nature. So if coaches can basically, when they decide I want to go to another place, if they're having that type of success, I feel that, athletes should have that same opportunity.
Sorry,
I
will
say this. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Last thing, I do think that with that opportunity comes a great responsibility for the athletes, and they have to make sure if they're going to do that, that they need to have a well thought out process and a plan in transferring.
Very, very well said. And if I could get that plastered across everywhere for everybody to see, that should be on plaques in locker rooms everywhere. That is very well said.
Thank you.
You mentioned coaching, and I kind of want to segue into that. You got into coaching. You coached in college, University of Wyoming, Southern Utah, your alma mater. You coached at Nevada. What got you interested in coaching? And what's the hard part of coaching? What's everybody thinks glamour, I know it's hard work. But number one, what got you into it? And man, what's the dark side of it, What's the hard part of being a coach?
Well, I got into coaching because my redshirt year, when I transferred from New Mexico to Nevada, I started seeing the game different.
Mm-hmm.
I started spending more time watching film. I started spending more time kind of analyzing the game. And I thought in the back of my head, maybe that's something I would want to do one day. So fast forward, when I finished up my eligibility, I had a coach who was assistant coach. His name is David Carter. He's an assistant coach at LMU now. Say, hey, Chad, you ever thought about coaching? And I kind of laughed. I kind of chuckled at him, like, come on, man, what? Coaching?
Yeah.
I don't know, coach. And he said, I don't know, man. It's something that you might want to think about. I think that you will be, good at it. And then to follow that up, my head coach, Mark Fox, who's the head coach at Cal now, he says, CB, you ever think about coaching? And I'm like, I don't know, coach. And he says, he was like, man, you can, excuse my language, you could do this shit, man. You got a presence.
That's how coaches talk.
Yeah. So, as years went on, that voice in my head, their voices in my head got louder.
Yeah.
And then I just started making the necessary calls and, using my resources, and I got the ball rolling. And that's when I started in 2010 at the University of Wyoming.
What's the challenge of it? I called it dark side. That was probably the wrong way to put it. But at any level, and you could say it's different because now you're coaching the NBA, but you were a college coach. What's the challenge? Is it relating to kids at the college level? Is it, getting pros to listen to you at the pro level? Is it that along the way at all times that you've got to relate to whoever it is you're coaching?
It's no challenge in that. If you have good relationships with people and you know how to cultivate those relationships, you won't ever have any trouble with that, because you'll understand people and players and other coaches you work with. I think the biggest challenge in coaching is wins and losses.
For sure.
Because that's what at the end of the day, that's what you judge on.
That's all that matters.
You judge on whether you win or you lose. So with that being said, there's no guarantees of wins and losses. And the best thing you can ever do for yourself is just do things the right way. Never try to cheat the game. Do all the things you need to do to prepare to win games. And then at the same time, on the back end, understand that still doesn't guarantee that you win games.
Yeah.
So as a coach, you're always going to be judged on that. And you could do a good job and not win as many games and still lose your job.
Absolutely.
But you can't lose your love for it. And you got to accept the challenge and be ready for whatever comes your way next.
What is, when you talk about that, and you said never cheat the game, I kind of, when you say that, it reminds me of what these kids are going through in today's world. You mentioned the NIL and even all the challenges these kids have, different coaches pulling at them on the AAU circuit, parents being involved at a level that they've never been involved before. What are the hurdles that these kids face today that they haven't had to face before?
I think social media. I think, with that aspect being added to the whole mix, you constantly have a spotlight on you 24/7.
Right.
You can be, releasing whatever content on your social media, and you can go to sleep. It's still somebody out there looking and analyzing that content, and you wake up and then it's a comment. So I think these athletes today are constantly scrutinized more than they were in the past because you can't shut it off.
Sure.
Like back in the day, you could shut off Fox, you could shut off CBS, you could shut off ESPN. Nobody's sitting there 24/7. I mean, you have junkies who's watching it most of the time, but like what I mean by that is it's right at you.
24/7.
Back in the day, you and we couldn't send a DM to Michael Jordan.
Good. It's a good thing I couldn't.
You couldn't go on his Instagram and leave a comment on his pictures, and hope that he sees it. So it's that pressure, and I think this is a bigger topic than just sports.
Sure.
I think social media brings a lot of mental aspects to life because some people put too much into it, and what I mean by that, they judge themselves based on the response that they get on social media.
How many likes they get.
Yes, exactly. So that can be a mental block or a mental challenge for many people. So today you have so many things that's geared towards social media that becomes a distraction for the athlete. So I think guys and girls being able to manage those things so that it's not a distraction, so they can focus on their craft.
And it's really interesting you say that, because sometimes the things, just correct me if I'm wrong here, or are sometimes the things that get you more likes in the basketball world, let's say, may not necessarily be the best thing for the team. An individual play may get you a lot of likes. It may not necessarily be what the coach like yourself wants or what's best for the team. It's a double-edged sword, it seems to me.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that you got to always take into account. And I think that we're learning. We're in the stage of learning. And I think 10 years from now, we'll have more knowledge on how to handle social media when you're an athlete or you're some type of celebrity. There'll be more training and workshops and conversation around it. But people don't realize it because we're in the now. We're still learning. We're still learning how to handle that thing because it can take over your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
before we move into the NBA part, and I want to get to that for you and what you're doing now with the Clippers, tell me real quick, your experience playing in Europe, in Romania. The challenge of that, the language barrier, all that kind of stuff. How did that form you? Was it a toughness you developed even more so? Because, you're in a foreign country. Yeah, you're playing basketball, but it's a whole different world, literally. How did that affect you? And how do you think that helped you form where you are now?
Well, I came up in the grassroots area of AAU, so I spent, from the time I was 12, I spent time traveling playing basketball. Now, it was in the United States,
sure,
but now I go on to college and, we did a tour when I was in college of Italy, so I was used to going different places and playing basketball.
I got you.
So playing basketball tears down any divisions or any roadblocks.
Breaks down walls, right?
Yeah, so basketball, even though I didn't speak the language, basketball was the common language, and those people over in Romania, they go crazy over basketball.
So you wouldn't think that. That's something you learn right here on the show. You wouldn't think of Romania as being a basketball-crazed country.
Yeah, like I was in a place called CBU, and our games were sold out every night.
Wow.
And, those people treated us really well. They treated us like, rock stars. And I couldn't understand their language, and many of them couldn't understand me. but we understood basketball.
They could understand a dunk.
Yeah, so we would go, we would go to restaurants, and the owner might come out and speak to us and give us free meals. So, it was really good. And one of the things that was amazing, and you will love this, playing over in Romania, we got the most love from the youth.
Oh, really?
They were just so, crazy about basketball because, during this time, this was the beginning of the YouTube era. So they were into who the NBA stars were and this, that, and the third. So they were just so mesmerized by the culture of basketball, not just the basketball itself, but the way that players dressed off the court, the different clothing styles, the shoes, the Jordans, the Air Force Ones, the style. They were very much so into that.
They were studying it all.
When they saw that, it was like, hey, these guys are in the NBA, but this is the next best thing we got to some American guys, walking around, and we can actually interact with them.
Well, and it's a great point, and I'm thankful you said that, because one of the things I wanted to ask you, and it's a perfect segue with this, you mentioned the youth loving it. You also work with the youth.
Yes.
Yeah, right here in LA, you do that with youth, and you talk about it. You work with the youth activities. Is it in Inglewood? Where is it?
Well, first of all, my heart beats for the youth. They are our future.
Yep.
I know that's real, like, taboo to say, but it's true. And I have a wonderful opportunity being back in Los Angeles, working for the LA Clippers, being connected to so many different beautiful organizations. And I've been able to work within the city I grew up in Inglewood, working with the Inglewood Youth Sports. And I have a podcast. It's called Time Out with Chad Bell.
Yes, sir.
And I've created this show for them, for the youth. And I want those people out there who are listening to check out my podcast. It's called Time Out with Chad Bell. You can find it on YouTube. It's where I have conversations with professionals from different worlds of sports. And we talk about the ins and outs of everyday life of being in that sports and the challenges that they face, and the type of work ethic they need to have, the things that they need to do each and every day so that they can understand from an athlete's perspective what they did to get them where they are, and also what they did not do.
Right.
You see, so I get fired up when it comes to the youth, because
you can see it.
I feel like that's an ongoing, everyday job. It does not stop. I run into young people if I'm going to the store and I have these kind of conversations, because it's needed to, push them and catapult them into where they're trying to get to.
Taking you to the Clippers and you being the player development coach there, first question I will ask is it a little surreal for you that you grew up in this area and here you are working with the LA Clippers? I mean, that's a dream come true, but especially for somebody in their hometown.
Yes, I never would have guessed in a million years that I would be in the city that I grew up in, working for NBA team. And I'm just thankful to God for blessing me with that opportunity. And I know that he put me in this opportunity for a reason, not just for myself. And it's wonderful working in the NBA, working with tremendous people from our, front office to our coaches to our players, and being able to interact with the community. And then it allows me to going back to, work within our community and help out the youth. So I'm living a dream. I tell people all the time, I don't have a job. I have a dream career that I'm currently working in.
How people have ideas, about pro athletes, personas that they have. At times they're bigger than life. And you being the player development coach, a lot of people would think they may not be open to coaching like that. They've made it per se. By and large, how does that work with these guys? Do you find that they're all by and large open to your assistance, open to your help? And what's the hard part of that? Because you are dealing with guys who are mega stars.
Well, first of all, when you're coaching, and how my mind works, I believe that when it comes to coaches and players, it's more of a collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
We're all experts, but we all don't know it all, and we all can learn. That's a player can learn from a coach can learn from a player. So nobody has all the answers, but I feel like you're spending time trying to figure out what that answer is. And when you figure out answers and you have breakthroughs, you do it over and over and over again. And through relationships and through conversations and through experience, we come together and figure out things out so that we can have success.
What's an NBA road trip like? We see the glamour side again, but are there days when you sit around, I don't know, playing cards, hanging out, doing stuff like that, just being boys? Because, at times you guys are gone for long periods of time.
Yeah, like when you work in the NBA, you're working with the family. The Clippers are my family because we spend so much time together. So when you're on the road, we play cards. We have conversations. We have a really good time. We go to different cities and we go out to restaurants and eat and we talk and we laugh. We really just spend time together. It's not just vanilla.
Sure.
Where it's just like, hey, we watch film, we practice, we play, and go to our rooms. No, you wanna build that camaraderie, and you build that camaraderie by spending time. We might go out on an outing at a particular city and go see an attraction that's in that particular city, or we might go to a concert. I think when you go through experiences with people, that allows you to grow with people, and you build that trust. I think the biggest thing in not just in the NBA, but at the lower levels too, is players and coaches and staff members. You got to spend time with one another so that you can better understand. Trey, if I spend time with you and we spend time together, and then when we get together for the work, it's that much easier. Absolutely. Because you understand me and I understand you.
And better chance of being successful too.
Exactly. And you have more trust for me and I have trust for you.
Is there something else?
I got your back.
Is there something else out there for you in coaching? You know what I mean? Is there another venture for a Chad Bell that's beyond player development? You know what I mean? Is it player development?
I just go on my journey. I go on my path. I try to be great at what I'm doing. I want to be the greatest at what I do. And that's what I focus on. I think eventually I have an opportunity to be a head coach in this league. There you go.
That's what I was trying to get to. Head coach Chad Bell.
Yeah. And I believe that, that's something that, will be awesome to do.
One more thing about your podcast. And again, go ahead and tell us again what it's called.
It's Time Out with Chad Bell. You can find it on YouTube. Time Out with Chad Bell. Give
me a couple of memorable interviews you've had on that podcast. And do you have a dream guest for that show? I mean, other than now me coming on, I get that. But other than that,
we got to have you on for
there
sure.
There you go.
It's been so many. It's been so many. One that really sticks out is the John Sally interview. Everybody knows John. You know, this big time former NBA player. Played for the Detroit Pistons, Chicago Bulls, LA Lakers. Won
and a funny dude.
Championships. What is impressive about John is his knowledge of finance. And his knowledge of nutrition.
Interesting.
So when you listen to this particular episode, you get much more than just basketball. You get some lifelong gems that you can use for the rest of your life. And I've listened to this episode probably 20 plus times.
Wow.
That's how good it is.
Everybody go check that out.
Every time I listen to it, I get something different from it. So
that's fascinating.
It's truly amazing.
Well, best of luck with the podcast. And listen, Chad, we appreciate you coming on the show. You're doing great work, not with just these NBA players and doing what you do with the job, but what you're doing with the young people is influential, and appreciate you coming on telling us about it. Again, anywhere else you want people to follow you other than the podcast?
You can also find me on Twitter at Coach C Bell. And then also, if you look on the screen, my IG is there, Coach C Bell as well. Feel free to contact me and reach out to me. Season 2, Time Out with Chad Bell, coming very soon, followed by Season 3.
There you go.
And I appreciate you, Trey, having me on the show.
Absolutely, man. It's a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate everybody tuning in today, and appreciate Chad Bell for coming on. It's a fascinating interview and a look not just into the NBA world, but the mind of a coach, which is always fascinating. I want to thank our sponsors again for making this podcast possible. First, we're talking about, again, North Georgia. Just go visit them on their Instagram site. It'll tell you all about it. It's NorthGA_top 10. That's NorthGA_top 10. Click the follow button, start planning your trip to one of my favorite areas of the country. Go see them on Instagram at NorthGA_top 10. Also, go visit the Line Movers Network on Twitter at @the_LM Network. That's at @the_LM Network, and their website at thelinemovers.net. They've got all the sports information you could possibly want. You can catch the edge of it all over social media. You can find us, give us a follow. All your podcast platforms, follow us there. Subscribe. We'll be everywhere you can find your favorite podcast. We will be there. Appreciate Chad Bell again for coming on the show. Thanks to all the audience members. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. Look out for another episode of The Edge of It All, where you will get the story behind the story, and you will hear something you've never heard before.